Lacan was a French psychoanalyst. In the 1930s, he studied paranoia. In the 1950s, he began to challenge mainstream Freudian ideas. He wanted to focus on the unconscious, not on the conscious self. Lacan believed that language is central to psychoanalysis. The analyst uses words, the patient uses words. So, Freudian psychiatry is entirely about language. The unconscious is not a messy chaos, it is an orderly network. It is as complex as a language. Lacan's famous saying is this: the unconscious is structured like a language. To understand this, you need to know how language works. Lacan used the ideas of a linguist named Saussure. Saussure said that meaning in language comes from differences between words. A word does not get meaning from the thing it names. It gets meaning from how it is different from other words. For example, cat means cat because it is not bat or hat. So there is always a barrier between the word signifier and the thing signified. Words and meanings keep sliding around. Language is detached from reality. It is its own independent world. Freud said that dreams work through two main processes. One is condensation. That means many things are compressed into one symbol. The other is displacement, which means one thing stands for something else. Lacan said these are the same as two basic language processes. Displacement is like metonymy. Metonymy is when a part stands for the whole. For example, 20 sails means 20 ships. Condensation is like a metaphor. A metaphor brings two different images together. For Lacan, this proves that the unconscious really is like a language. Puns, allusions, and wordplay are how the unconscious shows itself. Western philosophy has long said that the conscious mind is the true self. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. Lacan challenges this. He reverses it. He says, I am where I think not. That means the true self is in the unconscious. The self is not a stable, unique thing, it is a linguistic effect. It is made by language. Language exists before we are born. We enter into it. So the idea of a separate, unique self is false. This is called deconstructing the self. Literary critics find this very interesting. If the self is not stable, then the idea of character in novels is also not stable. We cannot see characters as real people. They are just collections of words around a name. This changes how we read. Also, if language is detached from reality, then literary realism is a problem. Realist novels assume that words can show us the real world. Lacan says they cannot. So, critics who follow Lacan prefer experimental, fragmented, and self aware writing. They like novels that play with their own devices. They like novels that allude to other novels. They like magic realism and metafiction. Lacan also wrote about how a child develops a sense of self. Before this, the child lives in a realm called imaginary. In the imaginary, there is no difference between self and others. The child feels united with the mother. Then, between 6 and 18 months, comes the mirror stage. The child sees its own reflection. It begins to see itself as a whole being. It becomes separate from the world. At this point, the child enters language. Language is about lack and separation. It names what is not present. This stage also brings rules and restrictions. They are associated with the father. This new ordered world is called the symbolic. Literary critics use these two ideas. The symbolic is like realist literature. It is orderly, logical, and patriarchal. The imaginary is like anti realist literature. It is poetic and fragmented. It gestures beyond logic and grammar. The two always coexist, but critics influenced by Lacan prefer texts where the imaginary breaks into the symbolic. They like moments when a novel questions its own realism. A good example is the work of Johnson. In his novels, characters sometimes question the author. They argue about their own motives and plots. This shows the instability of the self. It shows the self as a linguistic construct, and it shows language as its own closed universe. So, what do Lacanian critics do? Lacanian critics look for hidden meanings in the text. Instead of asking what the author or a character secretly feels, they ask what the writing secretly feels. They try to find contradictions and strange undercurrents in the words. This is like finding a subconscious mind inside the story. It is similar to a process called deconstruction. They point out moments in a story that look like Lacan's ideas. For example, they might show where a character acts like a baby in the mirror stage, or they might show where the unconscious takes over from conscious thought. They use Lacan's big concepts to read the story. These concepts include things like lack, feeling like something is missing, and desire, wanting what you cannot have. They treat the text as an example of these ideas in action. They believe a good story shows how Lacan was right about language and the unconscious. It shows that meaning is always slippery and hard to pin down. It shows that the unconscious is central to who we are. Because of this, Lacanian critics prefer stories that are not realistic. They like stories that break the normal rules of representing reality. In Poe's story, a minister steals a secret letter from the queen. A detective named Dupin later steals it back. Lacan uses the story to explain his own ideas. First, Lacan says the stolen letter stands for the unconscious. We never learn what the letter says, yet everyone's actions are controlled by it. The same is true of the unconscious. We cannot know its content directly, but we see its effects on our behavior. Second, Dupin's investigation acts like psychoanalysis. The detective repeats the original theft. He substitutes a fake letter for the real one. In therapy, a patient repeats a painful memory in words. Words then substitute for the hidden memory. This disempowers it. Third, the letter shows how language works. Words are signifiers. They never give us direct access to the thing itself, the signified. The signified is always lost or stolen. We have only the envelope, not the content. So all the words are like purloined letters. We can never open them and see a clear, fixed meaning. Unlike Freudian critics, Lacan does not look at the author's personal neurosis. He looks at the text as a metaphor for language and the unconscious.